New Year's Eve is supposed to be loud. Fireworks, music, people counting down together. But the year I turned 24, the new year didn't start with cheers. It started with footsteps outside my bedroom door in a house I knew I was completely alone in. This happened on New Year's Eve a few years ago. I was living in a small rental house just outside Columbus, Ohio. Nothing fancy. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, old wooden floors that creaked when you walked too fast. Most of my friends had gone out of town for the holidays. Some were with family. Others were partying downtown. I stayed back because I had an early shift on January 1st, and honestly, I wasn't in the mood for crowds or noise. I figured I'd do something simple. Order takeout, watch a movie, go to bed early. That plan didn't last long. It was already dark outside. Cold enough that the windows had that thin layer of frost around the edges. I remember checking my phone and seeing people posting stories, champagne glasses, countdown filters, crowded living rooms. Meanwhile, my house was silent, too silent. No TV, no music, just the hum of the heater kicking on every few minutes. That's when I heard the first noise, a thump, not loud. Not dramatic, just enough to make me pause. It came from the back of the house. At first, I brushed it off. Old house, pipes expanding, wind, that's what I told myself. About 10 minutes later, I heard it again. This time, it was closer, a soft scraping sound, like something dragging against wood. I muted the TV and listened. Nothing. I stood up and walked slowly toward the kitchen where the back door was. The motion light outside wasn't on. That was strange. It usually triggered if a raccoon so much as sneezed near it. I checked the lock, still locked. I remember letting out a quiet laugh and shaking my head, feeling stupid for getting worked up. I went back to the couch. Big mistake. Around 9:30 p.m., a dog started barking outside. Non-stop. Not the normal someone's walking by bark. This was frantic. Panicked. I recognized it as my neighbor's German Shepherd. That dog almost never barked. The sound made my chest tighten. Dogs know things we don't. The barking went on for almost 5 minutes, then suddenly stopped, like someone had flipped a switch. That silence afterward felt heavier than the noise. At 9:42 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was a text from my landlord. "Hey, just checking. No one should be at the property tonight, right?" I stared at the screen. I typed back, "No, just me." A minute passed. Then another message came through. "Okay, just wanted to make sure." That should have reassured me. It didn't. At 10:03 p.m., the lights flickered. Once, twice, and everything went dark. The heater shut off. The TV went black. The house fell into complete darkness. Outside, I could see other houses still lit up. It was just mine. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. As I stood there in the living room, something felt wrong. Not fear exactly. More like the feeling you get when someone is standing behind you. I slowly turned toward the hallway, and that's when I heard it. They were soft, deliberate, barely audible, but unmistakable, coming from the direction of my bedroom. My heart started pounding so hard I thought it would give me away. I whispered, "Hello?" No response. The footsteps stopped. I stood frozen, phone shaking in my hand. Then the bathroom door creaked open. I didn't wait. I ran. I grabbed my jacket, my keys, didn't even bother locking the door. As I sprinted outside, I glanced back. The motion light finally turned on. And for just a split second, I saw a shadow move across my bedroom window. I got in my car and floored it. Didn't stop until I was parked in front of a crowded gas station, surrounded by people celebrating. I called the police. They went back to the house with me. The back door was unlocked. Inside, they found muddy footprints on the hallway floor, not mine. No one was ever caught. I watched the new year arrive, sitting in my car, hands still shaking. Fireworks went off in the distance. People hugged, laughed, cheered. But all I could think about was this. If the power hadn't gone out, if I hadn't left when I did, I wouldn't have been alone when the new year began. Everyone thinks the most dangerous part of New Year's Eve is drunk drivers or bad weather. But the year I almost didn't survive New Year's, the real danger didn't come from the road. It came from the man who knew exactly when midnight would hit and
where I would be when it did. This happened on New Year's Eve, about 4 years ago. At the time, I was working a late shift at a small 24-hour gas station just off a state highway in western Pennsylvania. It wasn't a glamorous job, but it paid the bills while I was saving up to move. New Year's Eve shifts were always strange. Busy early, dead late. By around 10:30 p.m., the crowds disappeared. People had gone home, gone to parties, or gone to bars. That left me alone. Just me, fluorescent lights, and the hum of refrigerators. The snow had been falling all evening. Not a full blizzard, but enough to make the road slick and quiet. The parking lot was empty. No cars, no footprints. I was restocking shelves when the door chime rang. I jumped. That thing was loud when you weren't expecting it. A man walked in. He was tall, too thin, wearing a long, dark coat that looked soaked through with snow. What struck me immediately was that he wasn't cold. No gloves, no hat, no scarf, just standing there like the weather didn't affect him. He wandered the store slowly, touching things without picking them up. As he passed the counter, he asked, "What time do you close?" I said, "Never. We're 24 hours. He nodded. "Good." Then he asked, "How long until midnight?" I checked the clock. "About an hour." His smile widened. Perfect. Something about the way he said that made my stomach twist. After a few minutes, he asked to use the bathroom. Company policy said customers had to get the key. I hesitated, then handed it over. As he walked toward the back hallway, he stopped, turned around, and said, "You're alone here, right?" I froze. "Yeah," I said cautiously. "Why?" "No reason." Then he disappeared down the hallway. He was gone longer than he should have been. 10 minutes passed, then 15. I debated calling out, but decided against it. That's when I noticed something. The bathroom light wasn't on, and I hadn't heard the toilet flush or the sink. I grabbed the phone behind the counter, pretending to tidy while I watched the hallway. Finally, I heard footsteps, slow, dragging. He came back out without the key. I asked him for it. He stared at me for a second, then reached into his coat and placed it on the counter. His hand was shaking. Instead of leaving, he leaned against the counter. "You get lonely here?" he asked. I shrugged. "Comes with the job." He tilted his head. "Lonely places are where things happen." "What kind of things?" I asked. "Important things." Then he looked at the clock again. 11:28 p.m. He smiled. "I'll see you soon," and walked out. The moment he left, I locked the door. We were allowed to do that late at night if we felt unsafe. I told myself I was overreacting, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. At 11:45 p.m., my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You should unlock the door." My blood ran cold. Another message came in. "It's rude to lock someone out on New Year's." I ducked behind the counter and called 911. While the phone rang, I heard knocking, not loud, polite, measured. I peeked over the counter. He was standing outside the glass door, smiling. He raised his phone and tapped the screen. My phone buzzed again. 15 minutes. I whispered into the phone with the dispatcher on the line. "He's outside. He's threatening me." The dispatcher told me officers were on their way. The man mouthed something through the glass. I realized he was counting. 10 fingers. 9, 8. The clock hit 11:59 p.m. Fireworks started popping in the distance. The man pressed his forehead against the glass. His smile vanished. He looked angry. When the clock flipped to 12 a.m., he slammed his fist against the door, hard, over and over. The glass rattled. He screamed something I couldn't hear. Red and blue lights flooded the parking lot. The man turned, ran, disappeared into the snow behind the building. Police searched for over an hour. They never found him. But when they reviewed the security footage, they found something chilling. He had been standing in the parking lot for over 2 hours before he ever came inside, watching, waiting, timing everything. I quit that job 2 weeks later. Every New Year's Eve since, I checked my locks twice, and when midnight hits, I don't celebrate. I just feel relieved that I made it through another year alive.
This happened on New Year's Eve, about 6 years ago. At the time, I was 27 years old and living alone in a remote cabin in northern Michigan. I worked seasonal construction jobs, and during the winter months, I preferred isolation. No neighbors, no traffic, no noise. The cabin sat at the end of a long dirt road surrounded by dense forest. The nearest town was almost 25 minutes away. I'd spent Christmas alone by choice. New Year's Eve was supposed to be no different. Just another quiet night. Snow started falling hard just after sunset. By 6 p.m., the road was already disappearing beneath thick white drifts. I checked the weather radio. Severe winter storm warning. Whiteout conditions expected. Travel not advised. Perfect. I stocked the fireplace, cooked dinner, and cracked open a beer. The power flickered once, then stayed on. I remember thinking, if it goes out tonight, I'm screwed. The first knock came out of nowhere. 3 slow taps on the front door. I froze. Nobody ever came out here, especially not in a storm like that. I stood up slowly and grabbed the flashlight from the counter. Another knock, this time louder. I called out, "Yeah?" A man's voice responded through the door. "Mister, our car broke down. We just need to warm up." We. That word stuck with me. I stepped closer to the door, but didn't open it. "How many of you?" A pause. "Just 3. I cracked the curtain just enough to peek outside. The porch light illuminated 3 figures standing just beyond the steps. All men, all wearing dark coats. They were standing too still. No shivering, no pacing. Just waiting. Snow piled up on their shoulders like they'd been there a while. Something felt deeply wrong. If their car had broken down, they would have mentioned it again, asked for a phone, asked for help. Instead, the man said, "It's almost New Year's. Be ashamed to start it out cold." I swallowed. "I don't have room," I lied, "and the road's impassable." Another pause. Then he smiled. I could see it clearly through the glass. "That's okay," he said. "We're patient." I backed away and locked the door, then checked every window. Locked. Bedroom window. Locked. Bathroom. Locked. I grabbed my phone. No signal. The storm had taken it out. That's when I heard footsteps on the porch. Not leaving, moving, circling the cabin. Something scraped along the side of the house. Then a tap on the living room window. Soft. Testing. I crouched behind the couch, heart pounding. The man spoke again. "We know you're in there." Another voice chimed in. "You don't have to be alone tonight." I pressed my mouth over myself to stop myself from breathing too loud. The lights went out. Instant darkness. The fireplace was the only light left. Outside, the storm howled louder. The knocking stopped. That scared me more than anything. Silence meant planning. I turned on my emergency radio. Static. Then a voice cut through. "To midnight marks the transition." The radio shut off, then turned back on by itself. Same voice. "New beginnings require open doors." I slammed it off. My hands were shaking uncontrollably now. A voice echoed through the storm. Not yelling, counting. 90 minutes. Another voice joined in. 89. They were taking turns. Slow, methodical. I realized something horrifying. They weren't trying to force their way in. They were waiting. At 11:15 p.m., the man spoke clearly. "We can't enter until you let us." My stomach dropped. But once the year changes, the invitation resets. I didn't answer, didn't move, didn't breathe. All 3 stood directly outside the front door now. I could see their boots through the snow-covered glass. The leader whispered, "Last chance." I raised the fireplace poker, useless but all I had. The clock ticked. Fireworks echoed faintly somewhere far away. The clock hit 12 a.m. Every knock stopped. The men spoke in unison. "Happy New Year." The door handle turned, slowly, smoothly, unlocked. The front door creaked open by itself. Cold air rushed in, killing the fire instantly. 3 sets of boots stepped inside. I didn't scream. I couldn't. The last thing I heard before everything went black was the man's voice,
right next to my ear. You shouldn't have stayed alone. I woke up 2 days later in a hospital. Hypothermia, concussion. The cabin was found wide open. No footprints inside. No signs of forced entry. No signs of struggle. The police told me I probably hallucinated everything. But they couldn't explain one thing. Carved in the inside of my front door, from the inside, were the words, "Thank you for the invitation."